Hello, everyone, and welcome. And let's begin with our pledge, led by Patty Toronto. Oh, well, okay, go for it. No problem. Going off our next list.
All right, we're going to do it together. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Yep, and I brought the copy of the four-way test too. So let's all join in on this. The four-way test of the things we think, say, or do. First, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? And fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned? And I brought some copies so we can leave them in the lectern.
Thank you. Now, according to my notes, which I think you can all sit down now, but our thought for the day is Bev, right? Yes.
Okay, I have two, and they're both Jane Goodall, and I think they're appropriate for today's presentation. The first one is the greatest danger to our future is apathy. And the second one is, I think empathy is really important. And I think only when our clever brain and our human heart, I said human, it's human, sorry, human heart work together in harmony, can we achieve our full potential.
Okay, well, I don't believe we have any visiting Rotarians. I didn't see any. Okay, how about our guests? I think we have a few guests, so would you like to introduce? Okay, Holly, let's start with you.
So this is Renee.
Welcome, Renee, and don't feel nervous. Debbie, how about you? Welcome. And then Laurel, are you introduced? Oh, Doug.
I'll introduce. So this is Janet Higgins. Janet Higgins, some of you might know her. She's a local sculptor and artist. And I want you all to be especially nice to her because we're trying to recruit her to help with the mural project. It's really nice.
One of my favorite pieces is the work down at the growers market that I think it's a grasshopper, but it's really cool. I always enjoy seeing that on Saturdays or whenever. Okay, how about some announcements? Announcements.
Mayor, get an easel.
Hold that.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about two other things first, but just make them stand there. So some of you know that that senior house that the Mid-Road Foundation has purchased, and we've been asking for donations of furniture and various things. That's almost full. Thank you very much. We had a lot of wonderful donations, and we had a big load from Deb. Thank you, Deb. That was really great of you, very generous. We're getting close to being full. We could still use, I think the biggest thing we could still use is a pretty decent second refrigerator. So if you have one, let us know. And that list was sent out the other day. The second announcement I have is the Glencrest Veterans Village, the housing project about a year from now, maybe, where we're going to be building tiny houses for military veterans. That has two good newses. The city moved forward and voted yes on the ARPA funding last night. So they formalized their grant process, their grants to pay for the water and sewer in Clover Lawn. So that moved forward. And then we also got some really good news, some side back channel information that there are 3 groups, us included, asking for funds from the Veterans Administration Fund pool for this year in the state of Oregon. We're one of those 3. And the total of those 3 projects is slightly more, like $400,000 to $500,000 more than the actual pool of money they have for those projects. So we're likely to get funded, which is great, as long as our grant is clean and finished and in there, which is really nice. But we're probably going to get funded for maybe 100 or 200,000 less than the project is. So we'll have to do a little bit of fundraising, but it's nice to know we're not competing against 7 different communities or 10 different communities in this project. So that's really great. So that's moving forward. The mural. Jean Marie, would you mind pulling that up so that people on Zoom could see? So Gina's going to pull up what this is, but up there in photos, there's 2 different photos of this. So we've talked about the mural project we're going to work towards. The general idea is to paint the mural on the glass forge in October. That's our timeline. The mural design was between Leonora Rogers, one of our club members, Tommy Drake was part of it, Deb Amin was part of it, and then Judy Davidson was also did quite a bit of the actual drawing of all this thing and the design. What it is, it's based a little bit on Alice in Wonderland. You probably can't see it from back there, but there's a young lady being read to by her father, the book of Alice in Wonderland. And then this whole depiction to your left is her thought bubble and her dream about Alice in Wonderland. So we're trying to accomplish sort of a few things here with this drawing. One, we're honoring the glass forge for them allowing us to paint this on their building, and for it to then be their responsibility into the future to maintain. So it's a kind of a big ask to say to somebody, let's paint a mural on your building, because 15 years from now, 20 years from now, they're going to touch that thing up. They're going to have to maintain it. And part of that honoring the glass forge is the silhouettes of the 2 people here, and then blowing glass. One of the other things we're going to do is incorporate 3-dimensional pieces of art in here. Some of the junk art that I make and some of the good stuff that Janet makes, and a variety of things like that. So, and the glass forge is glass. So there's a few spots in here where we'll end up having pieces of glass. The eyeballs of some of the different characters will be glass. We're going to talk about the hearts and the cards and different things like that. They'll be glass. So there'll be one flat dimensional piece of glass incorporated in that. This caterpillar, thank you. The caterpillar down the middle is an actual vent for their heating system where they actually melt the glass. So it's a very large pipe that comes out of the top. So that's a 3-dimensional piece, and we'll add legs to it. We'll put a head at the top of it because it sticks out above the building. The cat that disappears in the storylines, that'll be 3-dimensional as well. We'll figure out how we're going to do it. One of the cards will be 3-dimensional, like some corrugated roofing. We'll just lay it out there, let it curve away as a card does. And so there'll be a few pieces like that. The other thing we're trying to do here is be inspirational, have a father reading to his daughter, that sort of thing, reading books. We're also, the design is a little on the, I don't want to say simple because it's not a simple design, but it's got a lot of big spaces that are easy to paint. So for all of us that aren't necessarily artistic, it'll make it easy for us to paint in a big splotch of black or a big splotch of the blue or the purple. So there's not a lot of fine detail. The doors over here will probably be the more complicated parts where we're really trying to get what looks like wood texture in the doors. And then the other thing we have in here too, that the Glass Forge asked for, were some spots where it's very popular with teenagers to get the pictures taken in front of something, so it looks like they're the ones posing to do the something or another. And so we have a few spots here. We have a bench here where they can sit with the two people. We have Alice drinking from the bottle. The cupcake will have a bite out of the corner.
Well, hi, I need to make an appointment with Christine to go over my insurance.
Margaret.
Got her? Okay. We got to warn Margaret of that one. That could have been pretty interesting. And then the metal wheel, I think we have another one of these gears. There's one over there on that table. We made a table once, and I think they came from the food bank. I think we have one more sitting around the food bank. We'll put it on here, and then this lever will be a real lever where somebody can do that too. So that's kind of it. And we're planning on preparing it in very late September and then starting to work on this in October. We still have to raise money. The big cost here is going to be the mechanical or hydraulic lifts so that we can get off the ground and paint these things. So we'll need to raise money. We're going to have a meeting after this. If anybody wants to stay around for that, please do. We'll talk about what it is our next steps are for raising money. So a general precursor to how this works is, I'm going to pull out another drawing. Thank you, Mr. Easel. Okay, so this is the start of that. And this thing we will grid out with lines at about 1 foot or 2 foot increments. And then we'll take that same grid and we'll put it on the building. And then you can see what bit of the rabbit's ear, what bit of the next thing is in that grid, and that's what helps us to draw that. That's sort of the process. And then once we do that, then once we've done that, then we start to backfill color. That's kind of the general process of how that works. And then in there, in certain places, we'll then start to add the three-dimensional art pieces so that we can paint shadows and paint around the three-dimensional pieces. And so that is it. And the goal is the month of October. So I hope you've all blanked out the month of October. But this may bleed into next spring because this is a pretty big building. It's 100 feet long, 22 feet tall. Alice there, I can't see her here, but Alice there, the drawings, those are life size. That kind of gives you the scale of the building. So it's big, right? So Alice there is probably 4 feet tall. The building is 22 feet. So it's a lot of painting. One of the reasons we chose that design was because there's a lot of open space. The cream color already exists. So anyway, hope you're available for October. We're gonna be painting. Bring your paintbrushes. Oh, one of the most wonderful things to have. I wish I should have brought it as a prop to show you, but muffin tins, right? Things you can make muffins in. Those are really excellent little easels because you pour your little red in there and you put a little white in there and you put whatever. If you need to go up there and touch that up, that's kind of for what we do. That's one of the things that helps do that. Okay. So if you have a spare muffin tin that you don't care about having paint in, save it. Okay. That's it. Sorry, I took so long.
Jim reminded me that we're supposed to have a social at the end of the month. So anyway, I got in touch with the Weekend Beer Company. So next Thursday, we'll go probably about 5 if we get there early enough. They said they do have a private event going on at that night, as well as a run group who meets there, but we could probably come early to save 2 big picnic tables without too much interference. So, okay. So next Thursday. So I put little flyers out on the tables this Saturday. I wanted you guys to all know about a community celebration. So thanks to the amazing generosity of our community, we were able to raise, the library district and the library foundation were able to raise enough money to purchase the property. But the city block between 6th and 7th and J and K streets to build a new branch for the Grants Pass branch for the library. So we finalized that and we're going to celebrate. So we're going to invite everybody to come out this Saturday between 10 and 12. There's going to be free ice cream and popcorn and cotton candy. And we're going to take a big group photo, a historic photo that we're going to kind of put in our historic records of the history of the library. So if you want to come out and be in the photo and just enjoy some fun time celebrating, please come out.
This one may not be so much fun, but I'm still looking for about 9 folks to give me dues for this this part going from July to December. So if you haven't given your dues in, just let me know.
A lot of great things going on. And let's see. Okay, it's time for our speaker. I think who's going to announce? Doug, right? You're introducing the speaker.
I'm very happy to introduce the speaker. Julie Akins is a person I've worked with in a number of different ways. She currently works for AllCare Health, and I'll let her explain her background, but she's been a reporter and she's been a mayor. She's been a bunch of things. I found out by reading something about you that you also were in San Francisco for a while. I grew up down there. So did my wife, Beverly. So welcome. She's going to talk about homelessness and some of her dealings with that and with what AllCare does with the homeless. Welcome, Julie.
Hey, everybody, how are you? Oh, no, I'm okay. I brought some little show and tell, but they're too small for you to see from there. So yeah, thanks, Doug, for that nice introduction. And thank you for all you do in the community. This particular Rotary is truly inspiring. You do so much hard work. That mural is just going to be slamming. It's so cool looking. So thank you for all you do and for Foundry Village and for understanding and caring about the plight of your neighbors. Before I start like doing a bunch of data dumps and numbers and things that I normally do, it'd be fun for me to sort of know where you guys are at in terms of this issue of housing and homelessness. So I think the first question I'm going to ask is, what do you believe, and just blurt it out, what do you think is the #1 cause of homelessness in Oregon? Mental illness is, what's that? Lack of housing? Okay, anybody else want to throw something out there? What's that? Drugs. Okay, so we've heard mental illness, drugs, and lack of housing. The #1 cause of homelessness in Oregon and the world is poverty, actually, right? They don't have the money. So we can do the overlays or the underlays, however you want to look at that in terms of like drug use or mental illness. But really what they all share in common is that they can't afford a place to live, right? So because we know that there are people who live in houses who have substance use disorder, right? I mean, we're aware that some people who live in a nice house may have that going on inside the house. And we also know that some people who are housed struggle with mental illness. So I'm going to regale you with a little bit of data. 64% of Americans who are unhoused across the nation are without shelter, and they have only one problem. That's homelessness. They can't afford a house. And that's according to HUD. So that's not like a political action committee. That's Housing and Urban Development. And that's the data, 64%, which tells you that the majority of people are neither suffering from mental illness nor drug abuse. So it's interesting, right? That we have this other view. In Oregon, it's 70% of people who are unhoused without any other comorbid conditions, as we say in the insurance industry. There's no comorbidity there. Yeah. 70% of the unhoused. Thank you. Yeah, that's a good distinction. So 70% of the unhoused are not comorbid with anything else but economic conditions. I feel like I see skepticism. Do you guys want to throw some questions at me? I'd be happy to answer them. I'll tell you kind of how I came to this. Maybe this will help. So how I came to this work was as a journalist. I kept getting assigned these stories around homelessness. At the time, I was writing for the Medford Tribune. I had retired from television news. My job in San Francisco. I moved up here. It's about 15 years ago now. And I took this little job reporting for the newspaper. And my subject area throughout my career had been criminal justice and environment. So that's what I thought I would be covering. And then they put me on city beat, and I went to a bunch of city council meetings and planning commission meetings, and they were actually interesting to me. Probably I tried to make them interesting for my readers. But my editor kept sending me out to do these stories about homelessness, and I couldn't understand why. And then one day I was sitting in a park talking to an unhoused fellow, and I told him, I said, I was interviewing him about a story regarding housing. And I said, I don't know why I keep getting these assignments. And he said, maybe it's what you're supposed to do. And I went, huh, maybe. And then I had this inspiration and this curiosity, because I saw what you see, right? I mean, everywhere you go, you don't think that in small town, rural Oregon, you're going to see tent cities springing up by freeways, do you? I mean, I had worked in Los Angeles in the Bay Area. I thought I'd see that there, but not here. And I saw more and more of it. So curiosity got the best of me. And I drove up to Seattle, and I went all the way down to Mexicali there in Slab City outside of Palm Springs. And I visited homeless camps in small towns and big cities all over. And I interviewed the people there, and I asked them questions like, how did you become homeless? How long have you been homeless? Do you have any source of income? How much money do you make? What do you aspire to? And I was amazed at the answers that I got. And I was also amazed and looking at the faces of the people, because they looked a whole lot like me. In fact, just like me. And I thought, it could happen to me. Do you know that most Americans are about $1,000 away from being homeless? So who likes math? Does anybody? Okay, wonderful. Okay, for the math people in the room, if you make $15 an hour, what do you take home monthly roughly? Just kind of calculate in your head what the tax rate, what would you guess? What's that? That's $30,000 a year. What do you think you take home every month? 500, no more than that. It's around $2,200 a month if you make $15 an hour. So, okay, $2,200 a month take home. That doesn't sound too bad. I've lived on that before in my life. But now put that against the rent in Josephine County or Grants Pass. $1,500 a month? Would you guess? Yeah. If you can find it, good luck. That's for a 1-bedroom, right? So you can't rent out part of your apartment and sublet it and try to offset that. So 1,500 out of 2,200, what have you got left? What? $700. Okay, you're a working person. We've already established that. You make $15 an hour. So what do you think you pay for your car? Unless maybe your grandma gave you a car, or your mother, or somehow you got a free car, or maybe your car is paid for and you're smart and you've hung on to it. But if not, if you're got a junky old car and it breaks down and you need a new car, what are your payments going to be? Even if you're really conservative, I think you're not going to get away for less than $300 a month. Okay. So now you have $400 left over for auto insurance, for food, for any incidentals you need. So let's say you work here and they say, congratulations, you got the job. And by the way, you need a uniform and shoes. And how do you afford it? How do you afford your life? You don't afford your life. So what happens is we find working people living in their cars. And then those same people who are living in their cars might be parked on a street overnight. And maybe the police will be called because there's a suspicious character parked on the street, and then maybe they get a citation for $110. How do you afford to pay that citation? You don't. Do you see where this is going? And this is more people are living this way than people who have well-paying jobs and can afford to buy a home. And think about even buying a home. People who are making pretty good money. You can make $90,000 a year. Can you afford a $400,000 home? Not reasonably, not reasonably. So this is just math. This isn't, there's no morality, there's no code here, there's no, gosh, they should have made better choices. None of those things are existing in the basic concept of $15 an hour does not pay for a home. And so when you drive around Grants Pass and you look at places like this, you look at all the little retail shops, maybe the place where you go get breakfast, maybe where you stop and drive through and get a coffee to go. Most of those people are there economically. Now, if they have a relative to live with, it works out. But what if you don't? Or how about this? What if you're on Social Security and you're an older person? By the way, the fastest growing group of unhoused people are people 55 years and older. And guess who they are? Women. Older women. Typically, because throughout their life, they didn't make as much money as the men. This is where that 80 cents on the dollar starts to really chap your hide, because that extra 20 cents makes a difference per hour when you're going to get your Social Security. So now we've got these older women trying to subsist on $900, $1,000 a month. It just doesn't work. And not all of them have sweet children who will take them in. Not all of them want to live with their family. Some of them are just on their own. How do they make it? They don't. They're unhoused. How do I know all this? Because in my tour, this is who I met over and over again. How I became related to AllCare Health is they came to one of my talks and they invited me to do a survey in Southern Oregon in their service area, Jackson, Josephine, and Curry County. And let me tell you, I found the exact same thing here. And then I did it in 2017, and then I did another tour in 2023, and it was worse, especially in Curry County, which is incredibly underserved. Josephine County was next, and Jackson County has a few more services. But even so, we can wrap around folks and give them food. We can give them health care. We can give them mental health guidance. We can do all of those things. We can give them substance use disorder medications and counseling. But if they remain on the street, they don't get better. And you know what the cost of that is per person? More math, sorry. $24,000 more per person per year for medical care. That's a mouthful. Think about that and the people who live in Grants Pass that and what that costs all of us as taxpayers, because that's Medicaid funding, right? Medicare, tax supported. It'd be cheaper to house them. Now we get to, but where? That's why we have a housing crisis, a declared housing crisis, because there aren't enough homes to put people in. And then we also have this bizarre situation. I'm pulling up my notes because we don't even actually know how many people we need to serve. We don't actually have a real count of how many houses we have to build for folks. And we don't have the zoning to be able to build. It's such a conundrum, isn't it? But I think it starts with understanding the problem. And that's why I asked, what do you think the cause of homelessness is? It starts with that. If we understand that this is an economic scenario, we can fix it with economic solutions. If we think that people are unhoused due to a moral failing, then we throw money at the wrong things. Do you see what I'm saying? Does that make sense to you? So if we think that, and it's not unreasonable to think that, I'm not trying to shame anybody who thinks that. We've all heard for years and years that the causes of homelessness are substance use disorder, we used to call it addiction, and mental illness. That's what we've been told over and over. And when you drive around and you see people with all their possessions on their back, talking to themselves, it kind of reinforces the stereotype. Because you see that, and you think, yeah, okay, this woman's telling me something else, but I don't believe her, because when I go to Riverside Park, I see people that appear to be either addicted or mentally ill. The people you don't see are largely the people I'm talking about, the people who help you through the drive-through when you're in a rush and have to get some food. You don't see where they're living in their car, right? You may not know that. You may not realize that they're living in a broken down RV that doesn't have running water or heat, which is a lot of folks in Curry County in particular. So you don't always see them. And even the people you see who might be talking to themselves, they walk 10 miles. That's the average amount of distance you have to cover every day to get services. They walk 10 miles with a backpack that weighs roughly 35 pounds. That's the average. I know, I've studied it. And you're doing this in the heat and the smoke. I don't know about you, but I'd be talking to myself too. In fact, I was talking to myself in the car on the way up here. So, I mean, if I was out there living at the intersection of absolutely everyone being able to see me, I might embarrass myself, but they don't have any privacy. So it's not a moral failing that causes homelessness. Can we agree to that? Okay. So knowing that, and knowing that what it really is an economic systemic failure, how do we, boots on the ground, begin to solve this problem? It's difficult. And I think we expect government to solve it. And I don't want to go off on a tangent, but having tried that tack, I don't have full faith in that as the way to get it done. But I do think some ways is first understanding the enormity of the problem. And that's something called the point in time count. Have you heard of the point in time count, the pit count? Okay. So do you know how they do it? Okay. It's kind of, well, I won't use an adjective. I'll just tell you how they do it. One day in January, during the day, volunteers from church groups or nonprofit organizations go out and try to do a head count, and then they report the count to the Census Bureau. That's it. If we conducted our census for everybody else that same way, we would have an undercount of who lives in our communities. How would we know, right? When you see the little sign, population, blah, blah, when you go into a town, how would you know what the population was if we picked one day in January and just tried to see who was at home and figure out where they live and what their name is? It doesn't work, is my point. The pit count is a terrible undercount. And it happens this way every single time they do it, every 2 years. Because first of all, it's January, so it's freezing cold. No one's going to be sitting in the middle of the day waiting for someone to possibly come by and count them. And typically volunteers don't know where homeless people hang out. They do the best they can. So they'll go to a gospel mission or an emergency shelter, and they'll count the people who were there at the time during the day. But a lot of those people, like we've already established, are at work. So they don't get counted. Or they don't go to those programs. Not everybody wants to go to the gospel mission program. Frankly, I don't think I would do well there. You can't, there's so many, there's curfews and hours and programs, and most gospel missions have a religious overlay. That's not for everybody, right? So it doesn't encompass everybody, neither do shelters. So they miss a lot of folks, is my point. And they also miss the demography of those folks. So when I go out and do my surveys, I'm going under bridges. I interviewed a woman under a crawl space of a house one day. That's where she lived, an abandoned house. She didn't want to break into the house, even though nobody was there, because she didn't want to break the law. So there was a big crawl space, and she climbed under there every night to sleep. She was a working woman. She cleaned hotel rooms for a living, but she couldn't afford a place to live. She was older than me at the time I interviewed her and had pneumonia and nowhere to go. So this is what we find. So I think it starts with getting accurate information, understanding the constellation of causes, understanding how many people are unhoused, and figuring out either, this is a big ask, either we have to pay more so people can afford a place to live, or we have to bring down the cost of houses, or we have to do a little of both. Don't you think? I'm not really sure how else to do it. We don't have enough houses, and the houses we have are too expensive for the working folks in our communities. So we have to find a way to do that. So I guess I'm talking to the Rotary today, and I'm talking to business people and retirees and people who have big sway in this community. And I urge you to get behind the Mid-Rogue Foundation that Doug's a part of, because they're doing this work in a great way, and so are you. Foundry Village is a fantastic success. I interviewed people there, and it's life-giving. I talked to a young man who had been homeless for, I think, 3 years when I met him. He was at Foundry Village. He said it took him a year just to stop being in incredible anxiety. He would wake up multiple times during the night. It took him that time to get comfortable enough to take his shoes off when he went to bed. Because when you're unhoused, you never take your shoes off. You can't. Because what if you get rousted and someone tells you to move on? You want to have your shoes. What if someone steals your shoes? You never take your shoes off. So it took him that amount of time to get comfortable, taking his shoes off, sleeping through the night. Then he got a job, and then that job afforded him to buy some clothes, and then he got a car, and it was broken down in an old junk heap, and he fixed it up himself, and soon he'll be out there looking for a place to live, looking for a rental, and he's been saving money like a little pack rat that day. This is a young guy. That's a life saved because of Foundry Village, for which I'm so grateful. And Mid-Rogue is also, as Doug mentioned, opened up a home for permanent supported housing for people over 55. Boy, is that going to be exciting. 6 people will be living there, and they can stay there. Can you imagine if every 6 months, which is about what we fund, that's the top of our funding level for people who are members and unhoused, 6 months. So every 6 months, you throw your stuff in a garbage bag and move again. So exhausting. So the fact that they've thought that through and created permanent housing for older people is, again, a game changer for these individuals. So these are the programs that are success stories that work, that we need more of in our communities, rather than, I don't know if it's okay to say, I'm going to try it anyway. Rather than doing what the city of Grants Pass is considering, which is making it even tougher on people who are unhoused and making it against the rules, against the ordinance to feed people in the park or deliver medical services or deliver shoes and clothes. Come on. I get it. We don't want people living in our parks. I understand that. The city of Ashland doesn't want people living in their parks either, but people have to have somewhere to be where it's safe. Can't we do better than this? What do you think? So the punishment thing hasn't worked. And you know why? Because people don't have anywhere to go. Everybody agrees homelessness sucks. Can I just say that colloquially? Everybody agrees. Nobody thinks it's cool. I'm not here advocating for homelessness. I'm not even here advocating for unhoused people. I'm just telling you what the numbers are and what it looks like out there, right? You have to decide how you feel about that and if and what you can do about it. Me too, on a day in, day out basis. I'm obsessed with it. I'm like the Bubba Gump of housing. Everywhere I go, it's like, oh, that could be a house, a duplex, a triplex. I'm always thinking about it. And AllCare Health has it deeply embedded in its zeitgeist to try to do something around homelessness. It spends millions of dollars a year. It spends money on flex services, and that could look like a ride to the doctor or a new pair of shoes or all kinds of things that people need that you may not think about. A new backpack, a place to put a backpack. That's a big ask, and we're looking at that right now. How can we fund a storage system for unhoused people to put their backpack during the day and charge a phone. That's a game changer. If you're carrying 35 pounds for 10 miles a day and you can have a central place to lock your stuff up and try to go out and get a job if you don't have one, go to the doctor and you're not lugging that stuff around and people don't look at you and go, oh, look at that homeless guy. You could just maybe even fit in. So that's the thing we're looking for, is a place where people can create a place where people can store their things. So if you want to help out, we'd sure appreciate that. But yeah, so we do that through Flex Services. We take care of healthcare through Medicaid and Medicare. And then we work on social determinants of health, of which I'm a part of. And we spend millions of dollars in something called share dollars, where we do infrastructure and building of homes. But we're just one entity, right? So we need all of us to come together and work hard on that. Talk to your legislators, talk to them about housing, make it easier to build housing, not slapdash crummy housing, not, housing that isn't good to live in, not housing that ruins the value of your home and your neighborhood, something that's appropriate and that houses our people, our working people. The housing authority does a great job and we need to be supportive and find new ways to build housing. So that's kind of my ask and my story. I don't really have a great wrap up here. I'm just sort of winging it. Does anyone have any questions for me? Yeah. How much is it in Nevada? Yeah, it's somewhere in that ballpark. What's that? So she asked how much Oregon spends per capita per homeless person a year. I don't know that exact number. In Nevada, she said it's 74,000. I would say 73. Thank you. I would say it's more than that in general. I mean, when you consider that the healthcare costs are 24,000 more per person who's unhoused, that's a dent right there. And then you take into account, everything else that we do to patch people up and keep them alive. Yeah, that's a good number. So if you think about that, like it costs $73,000 to keep somebody homeless. This doesn't make any sense. Why not just house them? Yeah.
Outraged by some of the attempts of the government to provide housing. Let me give you an example. Philadelphia was going to do public housing. I don't know what it's like here, but I know that a lot of here isn't, not my backyard isn't. That's a big problem here. The problem is things like in Philadelphia, not relating it to this issue. It took $300,000 to make one unit in Philadelphia 3 years ago. 3 years or 2 years later, they still don't have it done because of government inaction and requirements for certain things to be able to pass to this house we go. In those 2 years, from $300,000 per unit, it goes to $500,000 per unit. Doug knows this more than anybody. That's what's going on in this country. To try and talk about government responsibility for public housing. It doesn't work. That infuriates.
It infuriates me too. And I saw that as the mayor of Ashland, trying to get affordable housing built. Everybody had a reason why they wouldn't do it, right? Say, oh, it's too expensive. It's this, it's that. Oh, we can't have it here. We can't have it there. It's the NIMBYism that you're dealing with. It's the idea. And now there's a new offshoot that talks about, well, because of the environment, we can't afford to house people somehow, because I guess that would put a strain on water resources and other things. And it's like, yeah, I feel that. And I care very much about climate change. And actually it's dislodging people from their homes all the time. Right now, they're trying to save 40 structures in Agnes due to this flat fire, right? If they don't save them, that's 40 more unhoused people. If there's 2 per household, that's 80 unhoused people in a town that's got 500 people, right? And then you have the Almeida fire, 2,600 structures, 2,300 homes, most of them low income. A lot of those folks never rebuilt. They're still living in RVs, and people forget, you know, these cost overruns for low income housing. I don't understand it. I know that HUD back in the day did a better job. I know that it got defunded sometime around the first Bush administration. It just has been pared down and pared down and pared down to the point where it's almost toothless. So, you know, I imagine some of these cost overruns is due to, you know, waste, just waste, you know, people saying that they need more than they do and government contracts going out the door without better oversight. One of the things I'm really proud of with AllCare Health is the oversight, the quality control. We're really clear with people. We want to fund your program. Understand that we will be doing quality control on this, and that we will hold you accountable for how you spend these dollars. And these dollars better help people on the ground, or you'll never get another penny from us, right? Like, we track our money. Ready Ride is an example of that. Ready Ride takes people wherever they have to go, all over Jackson County, anywhere they need to go. And that's part of an AllCare service that we created. And boy, you know, we're tough on them, but they do well with it. And they kind of like it, and they're kind of proud of it. In fact, there's a little story. Do you have time for me to tell you a little story? Okay, well, I'll just tell this one and then I'll wrap it up. If you have questions for me, I have a report that is pretty comprehensive, roughly about this. The statements largely agree with a report out of UCSF that everybody's quoting now. My data is roughly the same for Southern Oregon. And the big part of that, the big takeaway from that is housing is medicine. Housing is medicine. So I guess I won't tell you that story, but if you want my little story, come and grab me and I'll tell it later. I appreciate your compassion. I appreciate the hope you bring into the world. Please keep at it. And if there's any way I can help, please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a very powerful presentation and certainly a lot to think about, but also to turn into action. Patty, you are our Sergeant at Arms. We are approaching, I'm sorry. Right, anyway, we're approaching 1 o'clock. If you need to leave at 1, feel free. So just take off if you need to. Usually when we go over, it's for a good cause. So I think it's worth it.
Well, that was sad. Okay, I had some funny stuff, but I don't feel very funny right now. So I'm just going to run through a couple of things about July 20th. Today's fortune cookie day. Woohoo, go have some Chinese food. In 1925, on July 20th, the median wage for women working in Alabama was approximately $8.80 a week. We've kind of come a long way, but I still think that $100 thing is, I'm going to just move along. I'm really moved by what we've just heard. So, 1975, oil hits $13 a barrel, which then allowed President Carter to allow a gas rise of 7 cents a gallon. Okay. Oh, Pancho Villa died today. You'd be amazed at what you can just Google a date and have all kinds of things you really don't need to know. All right, let's get on. Oh, no, we don't care about that. Okay, happy bucks, sad bucks, travel bucks. Who's got some money and who wants to talk about it? Come on up, please, or I'll come to you. Thank you.
Just a note on Sad Buck, You might know that Mike O'Neill passed away suddenly this last week. He was the husband of our previous Governor Cindy O'Neill. So it would be nice if the secretary would send a card up to Cindy on behalf of the Rotary Club, and I'll throw in $5 to help pay for the card.
Good job. By the way, ladies, if you ever fall and you get detached tendon, and if you're right-handed and you try to put on mascara with your left hand, you can lose an eyeball. Okay, Brenda. Throw some money out there, girlfriend. Woo! $20.
$20. And Jody brought in this magazine, just came out, the Southern Oregon Magazine, the summer of 2023. And Josie also said she'd bring in copies next week for everybody in the club that wants one. So yeah, and I'll autograph them.
Be sure to charge for those autographs. We need them.
If I do, it'll be make money for one of Doug's amazing projects. Thank you so much for being in our club, Doug. And I'm so excited, the new people here that would be such a great addition. We have an amazing club, but we just seem to keep becoming more and more amazing. Thank you.
Anybody else happy? Oh, moving this way.
Happy Bucks for being able to visit grandchildren and family in Colorado Springs the last 2 weeks. So I missed the last 2 meetings. Also, last night's meeting with the city council was, I thought, very good. It was heartwarming to hear the stories of all the people who helped with this.
Good job. Next.
I have $5 Happy Bucks. We made it safely back from Southern California. And I have to say, I would never want to go back there again. It costs 30% more to eat food there. It is the traffic. I don't know how anybody can drive on those freeways. It's terrible. But the one good point is, if you ever get to San Diego, take a tour of the USS Midway Museum. It is incredible. You're actually on this aircraft carrier and you get to see everything on it. It's great. Moving along.
Happy Bucks. My in-laws are still have their 3-bedroom home for rent in Southeast Grants Pass. Yeah, we're just letting people know through word of mouth, not putting it out in advertising. And it's $1,900 a month for 3 bedrooms. So pretty reasonable if you've got 2 wage earners there. And yeah, we got some bites, but we still are open to more people. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else want to throw money on the table? Oh, good. Here's Beth.
I want to second that about the meeting last night. The stories at the City of Grants Pass, I would recommend sometime looking at the recordings. They record every meeting. And the stories there were, I think Dr. Murray was there, one of our members, and there was quite a few people that stood up and talked about the stories about of the homeless and anyway, so I was happy to see the attendance.
We do have a community of givers. Oh, here we come. More. But it's a good place to be.
So I too have been to city council meetings lately. The last time we went was when the project Doug mentioned was being approved. And I would like to congratulate all of those city councilors for their strong attitude and their voting yes against the opposition of roughly 90 folks who had complained about it. But Mal and I are so committed to the fact that we can help people with a piece of property that's just sort of sitting there. Yes, we could sell it and make money and all of that, but we're too old for that.
And paint. Tommy and Mal have made a big dent in what we're working on.
All right, I'm gonna do $20. One, because I'm just so inspired by this club and I love it. But also a reminder for folks, little QR codes. If you don't have cash on you and you get nervous, like, oh, I can't do Happy Bucks because I don't have any money, just scan the QR code and pay with PayPal.
Got $5 to follow up on what Michelle had to say. We've got a 2-bedroom rural place that is probably going to be available by the middle or end of August for $1,000 a month. Incredible neighbors. You know, we live right across the street from them. Yeah. But, you know, again, it's hard to figure out exactly how to plug into this market and be reasonable. And yet, you know, we've got to cover things too. So anyway, if any of you are interested, please either send me an email or talk to me afterward.
Any hands?
So I have 5 sad bucks, and the reason that I'm saying they're sad is I was listening to NPR this morning, and a conversation came on about the extreme heat that we're having right now, and incarcerated people are needing air conditioning. Now, I'm not against incarcerated people needing air conditioning, but what about all those homeless people? Because the government is likely to fund that air conditioning need because we have a budget that helps incarceration but doesn't help homeless. It left me with a kind of a sick feeling considering that, just to wake up to that knowledge.
Okay, here's Mr. Get Her Done, Doug.
I have 5 happy bucks for Valerie's not here and neither any other city councils, but it's basically for the city council because that went on 5 hours last night, that meeting. Yeah, they got out at 11:15. And if Valerie was here, I tried to bribe her with more money so that I could maybe adjust the agenda so that issues for housing that we deal with come up first versus those ones that drag on forever. So yeah, it is pretty amazing. Their packet was literally that thick of information on a two-week basis. They get new information that they have to work through. And a lot of that was technical stuff because they adopted some new code about water runoff at construction sites. What they adopted state code, mandated state code about that. But they go through a lot of stuff, so they deserve a lot of credit, city councilors.
Come on up, Jim, it's your show.
I want to give 5 happy bucks. This is my 3rd week as president, and I just want to thank everybody. People have been extremely supportive and kind, and I appreciate it. It's a little bit like riding a Bronco, but I think the ride is smoothing out as we go. So thank you.
Learning curves are always a challenge. You're doing a great job.
48 to go.
All right, I think that's it.
Oh, Debbie Brownell. I'm getting my steps in, that's good.
Well, so I don't know how many of you have been reading Poverty by America, the Rotary Read book, but I'm a little behind, but I just read the chapter on talking about housing and talking about, you know, the people who are unhoused are poor. And they also have difficulties. I was amazed, you know, looking at it from a different perspective. I've had rentals before, and I don't choose convicted felons. I don't choose somebody who hasn't had a job for a period of time. I have the luxury of not having to say yes to somebody who's obviously ill. And that's part of the picture too. We've got enough demand that people with disabilities and life crises are not the first picks.
Okay. Thank you. Oh, one more. Or more.
I'll give 10 happy bucks just because my life is peachy compared to a lot of the stuff going on out here. And I just love this club, love you guys. But to piggyback on what Debbie said, I remember being a single mom and looking for a place to live. And I dressed nice, I had a great job, but you know, coming up, and this was way long time ago. But back then you had to come up with first month, last month and all that. And it was difficult, but by the kindness of people actually willing to meet me and speak to me and trust me. You know, I was always the renter who left your house much prettier than it was than when I got there. And there's a lot of people out there that will be like that and do that, but we just need to give them a chance. We had our guest speakers a few weeks back, and it was a family that finally, when one man had a kind heart and said, I'm going to give you guys a chance, even though you've got that eviction on your record. And they're doing fine now. They're getting on their feet. So we have to remember that it's a personal thing.
Okay, we're past 1 o'clock, so I'm turning it back over to Jim. Thank you.
No problems. This is from Sally from Zoom land. Hi, Sally. Just announcement, Christine Locke's group Angels is hosting a donation-only car wash this Saturday, 7/22, starting at 10 a.m. All proceeds go to helping unhoused neighbors. So the car wash is located at 200 Redwood Highway in the Duo Gym parking lot. So this Saturday. Just a quick reminder, we're going to meet the chairs and co-chairs of committees. You're going to meet afterwards. Doug's meetings at 2 on the mural, right? Okay. I have a quotation from our president, R. Gordon R. McAnally. This is what he'd like to share with us. Peace isn't just a dream and it's not passive. It's the result of working hard, earning trust, and having open conversations that may be difficult. Peace must be waged persistently. Thank you.